You were nervous someone was going to see it.
You're living in the Matrix, Michael.
This is serious, man. You have real issues.
You're jealous.
Yeah, that's exactly it.
Welcome back to...
Buckle up, baby.
What's up, man? How you doing, Mike?
Good. This feels transgressive.
Yeah, you know, in LA, I got my sunglasses. You got yours too. So we're just being cool, doing
Just
remote
hanging out.
podcasting,
Just two guys chatting online.
vaping and shit.
We originally met through chat roulette, so this kind of feels.
It
nice.
feels a little. It feels like Harry Max Omegle freestyles. Thank you, thank you, thank you. Give me a word, man. Give me a word. Any word. Supercalifragilisticexpialidocious. We in Los Angeles chilling. We got the Moses. Thank you, man. Thank you. We got to meet him.
I'd love to meet him. We should. You think it's that hard to get on?
You know, he seems like the kind of guy.
Mr. Harry Mack?
I feel like he's the kind of guy where he could do it, but he'd have to just like show up with no invite.
Why do you think that?
I don't know. It feels like something that would be serendipitous. Like we'd have to bump into him and then he'd be on the pod.
Right, we'd have to just go to Venice and have him ask us for a word.
Yeah, exactly.
I feel like he's not big enough that he wouldn't do it, and he'd be an awesome person to talk to because he's like Mr. Hustle.
Yeah.
Apparently, he makes a lot of money too, according to our YouTube comments.
That was our most. For some reason, they exploded over our curiosity about Harry Mack's income, and everyone's like
makes
yoga.
sense.
Yeah. Michael, it's pretty blary on the episode on the AC. I hate to say it. Do you want to give it a go?
Sorry, listeners. All right, I'll go. Shut it off. What's it like to go through life with such sensitive ears? Is that difficult?
Oh, good question. It's quite enriching. I don't have perfect pitch. You know, there are some people who, if I'm taking your question seriously, people with perfect pitch, it's a blessing and a curse because like they can't even hear things out of tune or slightly off, which sometimes is actually nice. Like a vinyl record or something gives a little grit and grime, and sometimes it can hurt them.
Mm-hmm.
So, but getting to hear everything is, it's like you're living in the Matrix, Michael.
Are your other senses dulled? Like, can you see? Is your sight more blurry because your hearing is so profound?
Yes.
Yeah?
It's very hard to see much of anything.
Like visually, you're like a dolphin going through the world, I guess.
I'm like Ray. I have to wear special shoes with hard surfaces so I can feel my way around the earth.
That's why you're always feeling women's wrists.
That's why I started wearing like that. That's why I started wearing sunglasses. You know what, man? It's good, groovy, being groovy, baby. So we are recording this episode for the folks watching via Riverside, a first-time remote recording, not using Zoom, using this cool little Riverside studio here, because I am in LA for some shows, for some gigs. Maybe I'll do some comedy while I'm here. I actually did book a little spot tonight, Michael. I'll be doing a little stand-up tonight. But that is why we are on Riverside, and it's good. We're making it work to keep up with the consistency, even while traveling, even while inconvenient, even while boiling hot on the East Coast. It's quite pleasant here on the West Coast, Michael. I'm not going to lie. It's nice.
Is it? What's it like there? We can do our second straight podcast opening up with the weather.
Yeah. No, it doesn't have that thick New York coated heat blanket feeling of when you step outside and you feel like an entire blanket just wrapped you in pure heat.
It's gross here.
I thought it was coming down.
It's coming down, but still it's gross. It's disturbing. Growing up, how many days do you remember being over 100? Here and there.
What are you're getting climate changey?
Whatever the reason, I think you're forgetting because I'm like watching my kids at day camp, and they come back and they're like, ah. You don't remember those days standing under the blistering sun? You just didn't know you could complain about it. Maybe I remember one summer. I remember one summer where the basketball court was too hot to stand on because it was black. You know, the black court, and like everyone was like, "This is the hottest it's ever been." Yeah. But I don't know. Maybe I'm forgetting, but there seems to be something different. I mean, even in the city, buildings that buildings I'm involved with that haven't flooded in 150 years or whatever
or flooding. They flooded 3 times in the last 2 years. That's weird.
Yeah. What do you attribute it to?
I mean, climate change, for whatever the reason is. I don't know enough about it to really argue it, but something's changing. The weather's different than it was when we grew up. I think.
Liberal alert.
Not into it.
I'm trying to think if it's actually significantly different. It's hot. Do we not like climate change would imply warming? Is it less warm? Is it warmer in the winters now, or do we still have freezing winters?
No, I don't think it's just warming. It's just it's changed more. The rainfall's different. The temperature's different. It gets colder. It gets hotter. Yeah.
Right.
I mean, just turn on like the news. Like there are like crazy wildfires, like once in a generation wildfires happening all the time.
I guess the question is that because of we've released more carbon into the world in just our 30 years of existence that it's caused that I'm a little curious about that claim, because a lot of the issue, a lot of the confusion about the climate change argument is that people who are quote skeptics, who are called deniers, are really oftentimes those arguments they make aren't so sophisticated. Like they say silly things like it's a hoax, such a hoax, and they don't understand greenhouse effect and all the things that does cause some warming. The question is, to what extent is the warming actually catastrophic versus how catastrophic it would be to reduce all the energy that we use to create the standard of life we're used to, that would cause so much more harm. And a lot of the climate science community have been making catastrophist claims for 30 years of these things that will happen that never have happened, because they always never take into account technology.
It's happening now, I think, in a lot of places. Would it cause harm to reduce our standard of living, or just discomfort?
Oh, a lot of harm, especially in the third world that's trying to industrialize. Like lights on at the hospital, like massive famine, like the entire industrialized world.
Are those the problems? Are lights on in hospitals in third world countries the needle mover?
A reliable electrical grid in third world countries is a huge thing, and if they don't have
that's
that,
creating
people
a lot
suffer.
Of climate change.
So
why would they have to shut that off?
If they're not allowed to industrialize for political reasons and been forced to use inferior forms of energy.
Political reasons, it's like humanitarian reasons.
If they're not allowed to industrialize the way we have, and therefore
they would industrialize differently.
But the point is, those other alternative sources of energy are inferior. They cannot create scalable, reliable, and affordable sources of energy.
The whole question is whether or not anyone is willing to live an inferior, like to not progress at the rate we've been progressing. I saw this really good interview with the guy on the New York Times, and his whole thing is basically that when they talk about carbon credits and all that stuff, like his whole thing was like, no one is aware of the extent to which like plastic and like carbon everywhere. And all that stuff is so integrated into the way we live, and like all of these conversations, he's not a denier. He's like full on climate change is happening. We have to do something, but he's like all the conversation around that is so he's like if they implement everything all the governments want to do, it won't change a thing, and that's what no one wants to talk about. Like we're so far gone, and then you could tell in the interview like there's nowhere to go from there. It's just terrifying. And it's not politically interesting. It's just terrifying. And so then the interview sort of ends, and you're like, oh, that's why that voice doesn't get any attention, because there's no way to create a story out of that. There's
Which
no way
voice?
to create any sort of controversy. The voice of just scientists saying like we're really fucked, and like the thing that we need to do is like so tremendous, and we have to all work together to do it. Like the things that get to play are like, we're going to be okay, and here's how. Or
I would say it's we're going to all die.
Or it's not even a problem. Don't worry about it. Like the things that make you feel okay at the end of it.
I actually think the opposite gets play. Like the catastrophists, like hysterical people get a lot of attention. Like, the Greta Thunbergs get all the attention politically. That's the way I see it.
Is Greta Thunberg a catastrophist?
Yeah.
I think
you're
she's
destroying.
Saying we have to
it's like, you ruined my childhood. You're destroying my future.
Of course.
Yeah, but that's more of a story of like a child. It's just interesting because you're a child. But I think what
No, but her
saying
views are
is,
being
like,
celebrated in certain political narratives.
But then she ends it with, so we need to do what the UN suggests, and it's like, and if we do that, we'll be okay. The voice that ends with like, there's nothing we can do, is like,
I understand.
All right, like. I don't know how to.
But
I don't know how to write an article about that.
There's a book I recommend to all the viewers of Buckle Up, and it's not going to be popular, but it's not a popular narrative, but it's really eye-opening. It's called "The Moral Case for Fossil Fuels" by Alex Epstein, who basically turns the whole argument on its head because he changes the entire. He makes you see, like, based on what you said, it's not that we're just all dependent on plastic and stuff like that. It's that, like, fossil fuels and the energy we use from those things have built the world that we live in today, and we don't even appreciate everything that we use that's dependent on scalable, reliable, affordable energy. And one of the premises that he challenges is that the presumption in the climate change debate and the people who are pushing for reform in climate science, the premise is that we live in a naturally safe world and safe climate, and that we make unsafe by industrialization. And Alex Epstein's counter argument is no. We live in an unsafe, dangerous climate that we make safe by industrialization. The only reason you and I are sitting indoors right now in comfortable temperatures, as opposed to out in the blistering heat or the freezing cold, is because of the use of fossil fuels and energy and oil and natural gas and all of these things to give us the technological innovation to live in an otherwise very unsafe climate. And if we're measuring the standard by human life and human flourishing as our standard, and not impact on the environment, whatever that sort of means, if we're measuring our standards morally by human flourishing, then fossil fuels have done an incredible moral good over the course of their innovation in implementing it to industrialize the first world and now the third world, to have longer life. I mean, I'm not talking about like luxurious yachting. I'm talking about longer lifespans, health, wellness, technology, all the things that make life actually better in the most meaningful ways, not in just the spoiled ritzy ways of the first world. And this presumption that we're making us otherwise safe, pristine climate unsafe with that is completely backwards. Mm-hmm. And then he says that
like that. That's interesting.
You know what I'm saying? Like, people sit here and make all these protest claims. Oh, what are we doing? Look what we're doing while sitting in an air-conditioned building while it's freezing or boiling outside. How do you think you exist like that? It takes so much for granted.
There's so much. We can move on to something we both can probably talk more educatedly about.
Of course, I'm not totally educated, but I found it very persuasive.
I think it's the cushy things, like the plastic bags at the shop at grocery stores now, where you don't get a bag. It's so annoying, but I'm also so like that's like I'm also like so like encouraged that however that happened, it actually happened, because you're like, all right, it's annoying and there's also, whatever, like we'll all adjust and we'll figure it out. But like things like that, it feels like more things like that need to happen.
But a lot
like,
of that stuff,
all right, maybe some families can't have 6 cars or whatever it is, like.
But you're already accepting But you're already accepting something not really based on data. It just makes us feel good optics wise. Nobody cares about the fact that to make the batteries for electric cars actually has a worse environmental impact than regular cars in a combustible engine.
Yeah, well, nobody cares. That's like a second level.
But nobody cares really about the empirical truth. A lot of this is all emotionally driven, like, oh, we're not using plastic bags. And what, economically speaking, or social, in terms of the social consequences and behavioral effects that it has, what ends up happening is everyone takes dirty bags, they go to the grocery store, and it's a lot less safe using bags that have back. People don't really care about that stand. I mean, if I were to make that claim to you, that the result of banning plastic, it's like we think we have. A lot of these solutions are very simple.
It's called a trade-off. It's called a trade-off.
Right, but nobody thinks about the trade-off. A lot of times those are not considered. It's not like we're operating on this empirical basis.
So back to the original thing. Right, right, because it's less interesting to talk about the trade-off.
Exactly, and at the same time, all these environmentalists should be in favor of nuclear power, which has very little carbon footprint and is historically
scary.
It has the word nuclear in it, so it's
scary.
You know that France,
it's Chernobyl power.
France is 70% nuclear for a long, long time.
70% Chernobyl.
Yeah. So anyway, you can be. That stuff does happen, but It made for
7 out of 10 people in France will die
I have a question. Are you whispering?
From Chernobyl.
Are you whispering because there's a baby sleeping, or because of the sunglasses? Is it putting you in?
Is it whispering? Am I whispering?
At first, we kind of started this way. I'm just curious. Voice sounds a little more mellow.
Oh no, I'm just I'm extremely hot also because I had to
I'm
turn
sorry.
the AC on.
And why do you think that is? Because your industrial AC had to be turned down for this podcast. And now you appreciate more. But I'm just saying, to wrap this up, I found that whole argument that he made very
also,
interesting. The way he flipped it. I was like, oh, wow.
Yeah.
We aren't just living in pristine nature, poisoning it. We're living in a very hostile climate that wants to kill us, and we make it safer using these technologies, not the other way around. And you can measure this by climate-related deaths being at an all-time low in human history. Like, climate-related deaths are at an all-time low. That's the truth. No one wants to talk about that fact either.
I heard a really interesting line. I think it was in a book about the Holocaust, maybe. And they said...
always a fun read.
What?
Always a fun read.
It was really interesting. Well, it was about... It was... I think I probably mentioned this on the podcast. It was about like what Eastern European kids learn in school about how the Holocaust happened, and they basically learn... It was this thing called Nazism. Took over Germany, and then it took over us, and it caused us to do all these crazy things. But thankfully, the Nazis are gone, and we're not Nazis. We're Ukrainians, and we're Poles, and we're Austrians. We're not Nazis, and thank God, because otherwise, like but for a little while, the Nazis did these things to us and to the Jews, and it was really awful. So this guy wrote a book about how basically it was inevitable that Germany was going to come to this place, and I think he has a line in there, and I might be completely wrong about him, but he has a line that says, humanity cannot say no to progress, to technological progress. Like it's just sort of like in our evolutionary DNA to no matter what the cost is, we can't turn down TikTok. We can't turn down Instagram. We cannot turn these things down. And even if it's to our own detriment, we're always 10 out of 10 times gonna go through it and and just suffer for it. Like even if we suffer for it, it's a good trade-off.
Flies to a light, to a glow light, we cannot resist it.
Yeah, and like you see with AI, where like we're creating these AIs that like I think they built a robot that can eat biological
food
matter. Like it's a robot that eats human bodies. And we're just like that's scary.
Why would we do
awesome. That? Because we can't not do it. Because we have like with AI, like we're building all these. Yeah. Possibly dangerous things, but it's just like in our evolutionary DNA to just keep going forward. It's
interesting. Michael, turn your mic up a little bit. I'm just getting some pops in there. Just turn it up a little more vertically. Okay. I want to actually add
like that.
Yeah, there you go. I just don't want to block your face. Maybe push it back a little and turn it up because it actually picks up your voice from that front panel, not from the top.
Oh.
But then it blocks your face. Maybe put it on an angle. Mine is over here. Say boom, and then I just put it to the side a little.
Does this feel good?
Yeah, that's better. I get more of the warmth of that.
This is better?
That gets more of your beautiful baritone.
I'm happy to oblige, Ame.
That's an interesting point. But do you think it's also part of the human DNA to be paranoid when in fact most of these innovations have only led to good things, and we're always thinking it's going to get worse, and it doesn't. It keeps getting better.
Well, it's like a question like with Instagram, like. Truly, at the end of the day, even with all the success that you've had on TikTok and like with comedy and your career and everything, like with all of it, would I be better off if Instagram never existed? I probably like there's a trade-off. I wouldn't have found out about cool products and cool comedians. Like there were things I'd be missing out on. But like same thing with like deleting the Twitter app. Like you miss out on stuff. You definitely miss out on stuff. But I'm better off without it. Like, I mean, I think we'd like mostly be better off without Facebook and Instagram.
Of that tech. I mean, you don't know.
Net positive.
You don't know what you don't know.
Obviously.
No, I'm saying back in the day
when going forward,
when we didn't have the tech, we didn't. It's not like we were like miserable. Just it wasn't there. That's what you're saying.
Right, but going forward, right. So for the next new thing, we won't know. But even like going forward with like when you're thinking about getting TikTok, like you could say to yourself, like, it's probably awesome, but I'll probably be better off without it.
Yeah, but at the same time, like the status quo of things pre these technologies, like we just accepted them but they like these things are as equally empowering as they are damaging. That's the problem.
Yeah,
so it's
yeah,
like
you're
this.
right. But I wonder,
you know, especially for
but
artists.
I wonder at the end of it if someone really had to choose. Yeah, maybe. I mean, did you see what the CEO of Patreon just said about Instagram?
Jack Conte?
He just went off on Instagram. What?
Jack Conte.
Because of these new. So Instagram rolled out this new TikTok like feature. Basically, they're basically turning the entire experience into TikTok. Mm-hmm. So every post goes the whole entire screen, and it's like it's almost. It's very. You're not. They don't show photos. You're not going to see your friends' photos unless you actively search.
You're
for
saying
them.
they're doing only reels.
So they're just
Sorry, they're doing only reels.
It's like only video. It's only video and only reels. Mm-hmm. And if there is a photo that gets in there, it's treated like a reel. It's like just like a full page thing with like a little comment on the bottom. So they're pushing reels really hard. But the big difference that they made, and I don't know. I'm sure you read about this a little bit, but the big difference they made is they're switching from recommendation algorithms based on what you've previously done to what TikTok does, which is algorithms not based on what you've previously done, but based on AI. Of like, it's the reason TikTok is so amazing because you open the page and they're like, we don't care what you think you like, we're gonna tell you what you probably like, and it's fucking awesome. Yeah. So Facebook they're reorienting the entire company. They invented social media algorithms of like, you know, if you remember in like 2007, it's all anyone talked about of like, now we can say, if you follow this person, you're going to like this person. And like, they're like, all right, you're worth $1 billion. And like all of that now has progressed. And they're like, that is no longer the thing that people respond to. It's this other way of organizing it called like AI organizing it or organizing it through AI. But so now people like Kylie Jenner came up and they're like, yo, we've been spending our careers building our fan base around what you told us we needed to do, and then you just switch it like that. And like for Kylie Jenner, it doesn't matter, but for a lot of people like at your level, it matters. Hey. And so the Patreon CEO was like, he's like, you know, you can trick yourself into thinking that your Instagram fans are your fans, but they're not. They're Instagram customers. Correct. And the second Instagram wants to turn that off or turn that on, like that's up to them, and you have no control over it.
I've watched a bunch. Jack Conte has been on this for a little while because he started talking about YouTube versus TikTok. And what he doesn't like about TikTok is what you're saying, is that it commoditizes creators as just commodities within the app. It doesn't create a loyal following of people who enjoy you. If someone likes your video, that's just telling the algorithm they like this kind of thing, and then the algorithm will serve them up similar kinds of things. But it does not invite or engage with consumers to come to me or to you and come to us to be part of our community. The way YouTube fosters better community building. Subscribe to my channel, be a part of this thing. Because it was user driven and not algorithmically driven. Yeah. And so I hear that. Right. He's also been on the YouTube kick because he built his audience on YouTube. So it's a little bit unfair to tell a bunch of TikTokers in their new space how bad and dangerous it is. There's a little bit of that. You know?
Yeah, I mean that guy's biased as anyone can be because like he's the competitor.
But he's also he used the YouTube model to Patreon model, which is great for building communities. But I think it's best to kind of keep an open mind to the fact
that... who's Jack Conte?
The CEO of Patreon. You just brought him up.
Oh, okay. I didn't know his name.
Yeah, sorry. Jack Conte. He's like, you know, with Instagram creators, and he kind of has this, like, he's one of the most talented people I've ever witnessed. He's an incredible musician. He has a funk cover band called Scary Pockets, and they do all these cool funk covers of like pop tunes and hits. He also has a band called Pomplamoose with his wife. That's original music and arrangements. He was a music YouTuber, Jack Conte, for years, and him and his wife were putting out all these videos for free, like these great videos that were getting a lot of views in the early days of YouTube, and it was crazy covers and cool music production stuff and songs. And he said, you know what? How are creators monetizing any of this? Like, how are they able to like make a following? So he created Patreon for like creators and musicians and people to like actually. Yeah. He's created it because he's like, there's a need for this, and he went and did it. And he's an incredible video editor and he's like a polymath. He's really amazing.
Is he nice?
I don't know him personally, but I don't know. But he seems nice, and he seems to really care and is passionate about art, and especially new age, like new media art. I mean, he's one of these crusaders in this sort of fight of like, you know, he has detractors on like the conservative side because Patreon has like suspended conservative YouTubers, and like Dave Rubin famously and Sam Harris left Patreon because they kicked off Sargon of
really?
they had, and they started their own like subscriber-based models because they kicked off another conservative creator for something silly, like terms of service kind of stuff. Jack Conte's become a little bit part of the big tech Silicon Valley world now that he's part of Patreon, and he started Patreon. He joined like a little bit of that.
Right.
But anyway, he's not really a pop.
As long as Tim Dillon's on there.
So I'm just saying that was created by Jack Conte, a fellow creator who's like, we need to do something about this.
Oh, right. Okay. So he's got YouTube's back.
In a way, YouTube was like sort of what he gave the antidote to YouTube, and they worked together to form this beautiful coexistence of how creators on YouTube could then get support. But now he knocks TikTokers, and I get it. That's fair critiques, but the organic reach of TikTok is like nothing else. So call it commoditization, but you at least can get that first attention when you're a nobody. That's what you first need.
Yeah.
You can't maybe take 10 or 15 years to build up a YouTube audience. Maybe it's a better way to you give out your free samples on TikTok and then bring them into YouTube. So there's value.
Right. Yeah. We don't even know where TikTok's going to be in that pyramid, in that funnel.
Right. Anyway,
it's right. It might be.
But the broader point you were saying was what? That that Instagram is trying to do this, and he was going off on it. Fair enough.
When you were saying that Instagram is like this powerful tool that empowers people, like it is, but it's also like a public company that's beholden to like their shareholders, and they're going to do whatever the fuck they want to do at some point. And like empowerment is not like on their top 10 priorities of like increasing shareholder value.
Yeah, but I know, but everyone forgets the unseen is what I'm really arguing for is not that it's perfect or all well-intentioned. But the alternative was you're a guy or a girl with a ton of talent in a small town and 2 people know about it for the rest of your life.
Yeah.
That's the alternative. That's in the 90s and 2000s, you could not break out unless a major label or distributor or somebody happened to discover you and put you out there. And that was a massive gatekeeper.
Yeah,
and now the fact that we know about some of them, like hundreds of thousands of incredibly talented people out there that are now able to form a career out of their skills in ways that we never could have imagined. That's the flip side. That's the pure positive element.
Right. So going back to climate change, that's a real trade-off, to keep adolescent girls from committing suicide. Mm-hmm. Are you willing to maybe live your life as an obscure artist? Like that's a serious trade-off. Like with climate change also, like are you willing not to go on summer vacations with your family?
Yeah, but why are you
and not give your kids those like these are real serious questions.
I know, but you're putting the onus on like the creator is like, are you willing to not be an obscure artist? Because girls are committing suicide because of your channel. It's like, no, they're not. They're committing suicide because of the existence. That's a broader
No, because of these companies.
Yeah, I'm just saying. You have to be mindful of your own children and their well-being and be diligent about all the new technologies and whatever. It's not the responsibility of somebody benefiting from them.
But the data shows fewer girls would have committed suicide. Fewer teenagers would have committed suicide if Instagram wasn't around. That's just what it is.
Yes, trade-off is built into life. Like before the airplane, nobody died in plane crashes. It just didn't happen.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah,
so why don't you go out with a sign crashed to the Facebook headquarters, all right? And I know what you're saying. It's a trade-off, but who's the responsibility on? It's like you're pitting the creator who's succeeding on Instagram to the girl who, God forbid, committed suicide, as if one is responsible for the other.
No, right. Theoretically, they. I mean, I guess like sort of. It's like on everyone to just stop using it, but oftentimes if everyone could coordinate and stop using it, that would never happen.
But oftentimes, especially like you're not making this argument intentionally, but there's always this argument, like especially if the more left of center you go, that we need to do something. It's the responsibility of all of you to change this, as opposed to I need to do something to make my life better. There's never this sense of personal responsibility. At least that narrative, that perspective is never pushed. It's always somebody else that has to do something good for the sake of the collective world. And I'm like, the only thing you can do in this life is try to make, if you want to impress somebody, impress yourself. Like try to do something better for yourself and the people around you, versus these massive moral claims about what somebody should do for someone else,
I want Instagram to go under so then I can build a new Instagram and be the one in charge.
Go on.
That's what I want.
And what would that look like? What would that look like?
That's it. If teenagers are going to commit suicide, I at least want to be a billionaire. I think that's all I'm saying.
I understand that.
I think that's very...
In a world where teenagers are committing suicide, it's better to be a billionaire.
That's a very reasonable and sympathetic approach, I think.
It's the truth.
Yeah, it's
the truth of the
You're
matter.
not angry at Instagram. You're jealous.
Yeah, that's exactly it.
All your critiques are not coming from some
jealous
moral
of-
High ground. They're purely based on greed. And
Kevin Systrom.
what's that? What's that from?
Exactly. Kevin Systrom. I think he's the owner of it, or he's the founder. He's the founder.
What people get really pissed about Facebook, about like what Facebook does, is that they are so unoriginal. They steal overtly everything they've ever developed. A lot of people in like the tech world. Remember that podcast? Like I think it's called All In. I think it's All In.
Yeah, we have this conversation.
But I don't know.
every
But I
single-
don't know. I know we talk about All In a lot, and I'm not sure if the one I'm thinking of is All In. It's with that like.
It's not. It's not. The one you're thinking of isn't the one I'm
What's the
thinking
one
of.
where it's like a Sri
The finance
Yeah,
podcast.
it's a Sri Lankan or Indian guy, and then another guy who's very angry.
Yeah, I don't think it's all in. Should I? Do you want me to? Check. I
look
can
it
actually
up.
check
Jamie,
my phone now.
Jamie, look it up. It's one of these things where the guy is always like, we need to stay away from Mark Zuckerberg. He's the most dangerous man in Silicon Valley. Facebook has never had an original idea. This is their MO. They steal every piece of technology. They stole stories from Snapchat. They're stealing reels from TikTok. And what people get pissed about Instagram is they tried to do Instagram TV to steal from YouTube. Like they never come up with their own thing. And that TikTok is whatchamacallit? Like the tech is very advanced at TikTok in terms of the algorithm that people can't match, and they're trying to chase it.
Well, Facebook had to steal things because they weren't allowed to buy apps anymore. Like they would buy TikTok if they could.
Yeah, of course.
They're regulation wise, they're not
is that
allowed
what
to
happened?
because of like monopoly stuff.
That's the thing.
What?
That's the claim against Zuckerberg. People in that world. I know nothing about it, but they're claiming he's not to be trusted. He wants control of everything and steals what he can.
Oh yeah, I mean the Instagram founders left, the WhatsApp founders left, and they all like talk shit about
That's
him.
interesting.
Like immediately after, yeah, no, they all hate him. Obviously, come on, guys.
No, I don't know.
Like
A reputation that keeps coming.
What'd you expect, guys? What?
Yes, but at the same time, like not everybody in Silicon Valley is spoken about in the way that Mark Zuckerberg is. There's this consistent idea of that he's not only cutthroat but not trustworthy, doesn't have integrity. Those things have come up a lot, particularly at him. It's not like they come up about every tech CEO.
Yeah.
No one talks about the CEO of Google that way.
I always get upset at former Facebookers who walk away very, very wealthy and all of a sudden have like a conscience about what they were doing.
Yes, we've talked about that too.
Like, yeah.
I don't think it's that
yeah,
simple.
like the WhatsApp founders, they sold their company to him and whatever.
Yes, but I think
Yeah, I mean they knew there was a chance and they took the chance and that's the trade-off.
But you've always had this consistent attitude where as soon as somebody makes a lot of money, they lose their right to say anything about anything because you have money, so shut up.
I don't think that's true.
You don't think that?
I do think that being part of a certain class is like corrosive in a way that you can't really fight against. But no, I don't know. It's not because of the money necessarily, but
You're suspect of people who like have done well and seem to lose credibility. I've noticed it with you. You tend to be like, yeah, but you.
I don't know. I think I'm more skeptical. I think people who have more power, you need to be more skeptical of, and having more money is more power. But no, the WhatsApp thing. It's not because they have money. It's because they gave the company they built, even if they sold it for $0, they gave it away to Mark Zuckerberg, like full well knowing that there was a chance that he could integrate it into Facebook and start selling ads through it. So like once you take that chance, then you're gonna leave and like talk shit about him. Like you're the ones.
But don't you think
you're the ones who did it? I'm just holding you responsible for your decisions.
Don't you think that
it's not his fault? It's not Mark Zuckerberg's fault. It's your fault.
Don't you think that might be a very big?
You gave it to him.
Don't you think that's a big oversimplification of what is probably their gripe? We have no clue about the internals. Maybe the deal was structured in such a way.
No, they write about it. I read about it.
Yeah, but
he promised them he wouldn't do it, and then he did it. So Mark Zuckerberg.
Yeah.
What? Yeah. And then the only reason we sold it is because he told us he wouldn't do this, and now they're trying to turn WhatsApp into Facebook.
Right, but I'm just saying.
It's like, yeah, well, you sold WhatsApp to Facebook.
But we're both, even though you're reading about it, like you're being presented with the caricatures of both sides of this, of this story. Like what's coming out in the article is like that's how they presented what's going on, and he presented what's going on. It's not that simple, and I'm sure the internals of why they left are much more complex than, I thought he wouldn't do that.
I don't know.
Don't you think you're probably getting a charactered story?
I think sometimes they are. Sometimes they are kind of simple.
I don't know. I just know that
I hear you. We don't have the whole story.
It's an article, and what they choose to disclose.
We got to get
what
them
they
on.
choose to disclose to the article, and what they're allowed to talk about. I just there's so much more. There has to be. This is complicated, big stuff.
Yeah.
It's not like
I'd love to get them on to talk about it.
How's our 30 days to Joe? How's our 30 days to Joe Rogan looking? What have you got? Any?
Oh, we only have. What do we have now? We
20.
have 83.
80.
I got to get a hot air balloon.
Oh, right.
You took that question so seriously. When I rewatched it, I was so annoyed at you.
Yeah, I did.
It was a fun question, and you're like, "No, Michael, this is your problem. This is your problem."
I did take it too seriously.
You took it really seriously.
You wanted me to go there. I'm down the fun experimental rabbit hole.
It's just fun. You took it as a teaching moment.
I did, and I realized that also when I watched it back. I was like, I'm not getting this. I'm not getting.
No, I think you got no. You're like, Michael, I know you're joking and you want me to joke back with you, but this is serious, man. You have you have real issues.
It wasn't even at you. It was. I mean, maybe it was. I think it was at you, but I think maybe my mind now just has such a instinctual reaction to that kind of stuff. Even though you were joking, I was just like,
well, because you train yourself.
Yeah.
You train yourself to cultivate that attitude, and you don't have any. You're still training yourself, so you can't joke about it.
I've also had enough
You know what I'm saying? You're still in the. It's not. You still need to work that muscle, so maybe. you can't let yourself.
I've also had enough
go for a moment
of those big of I wouldn't say big, but moments that you think are going to be the game changers that aren't necessarily even. They're not. They are signs of progress, but they don't just overnight do something.
Yeah.
That I'm just very much like.
Are you worried Are you also worried that someone in that world would hear you have that conversation and go, "Oh, Ami's not that Ami Kozak official is not one of he's not for real.
Maybe
he's a amateur."
Maybe because that's how I would see it if I saw somebody and I misunderstood them genuinely trying to get on Joe Rogan as a mission. Maybe the whole thing was cringing me up a little bit. Yeah. Because if I saw somebody do that,
it was. I could tell you were nervous. Someone was going to see it.
I didn't want to be. I don't want to be saying that, even though it was a joke. Maybe I was self-conscious about it because I just come from this place where people. I think I'm traumatized by a mindset I used to have for so long about how success in this business works. If you only get on Jimmy Kimmel, give me a big for that. I used to think, you get one tweet from Jimmy Kimmel and that'll do it. And then I've so many reps of those kind of, I would say, mini disappointments, or just learning moments, that even the idea of me saying on camera that I want to go do this, I have to get on this thing. I don't know. It just gave me a weird taste in my mouth. And I don't know if it's I don't want someone to see this. It's more like, I don't want to say this. It's maybe it's trauma. You know what I mean?
Well, I think you thought I was being cringy. It felt a little bit like you go to a party with a fun friend, with the party with a friend, and they wear a wacky hat or something, and you're like, dude, you're embarrassing me. But then you realize they're the one actually having fun, and they're the one who people want, you know what I mean? And you're like. You're like, dude, don't do this on our podcast. I was like, no, this is a good. I
wasn't resistant to.
And Joe reached out, and he's going to have us on. So.
I wasn't actually worried about the episode. You could talk about it. I just wasn't quite going there with you. I actually enjoyed watching you go on your own, and I was watching back. It's what should we kidnap Andrew? Should we do something terrible? Maybe Andrew Schultz? We could make up some claims. The disconnect was kind of amusing to me, is the truth, because then you were like.
There is.
And I was like, oh. Sometimes those moments are entertaining too.
Yeah.
I wasn't being self-conscious that this is on an episode. It was really just me being as honest in the moment. I wasn't like, oh no, this can't be on here. I was just like in the moment. The raw, honest display of that was me being like, ugh. So, if I would have gone with you, I would have been faker if I pretended to go there with you.
But what if? But I think it has more to do with me because if Tim Dillon did that, you would have thought it was hilarious.
If Tim Dillon did that?
If you went on Theo Von's podcast and he said to you, Ami, what would you have to do to get on Joe Rogan in 90 days? You would have played along.
Maybe because I would have also known
he was Theo Von. It's not Michael Weber.
I don't know,
right.
Michael.
Because you don't think...
We were having a conversation in real time. But the fact that Theo Von is on Joe Rogan and is a comrade of his would make the whole thing fundamentally much less serious than the game you were playing.
I guess so.
I don't think it was.
Do you think that I think I can get on Joe Rogan in 90 days?
I really do.
Maybe you do. Yeah, that's fair.
I have no idea. It was just a real time conversation, and I think you're getting a little bit worked up about.
That's fair. Well, it's we don't in person. It's hard. It's you can have different types of conversation over Zoom than you can over Riverside.fm. Than you can in person. So we should have those conversations. I don't know if we could have this in person.
It's funny to scandalize such a seemingly ordinary little exchange of 3 minutes of time on our last episode, but I'm happy to do it. If I'm reflecting, I think I just wasn't yes-anding what you were doing. Not even intentionally. I just don't think I did. You know? That's all. I was like, I don't know. Ugh, this game. You want to play this game? Maybe I just lumped. I think I just didn't.
Yeah, but the why of it is interesting to me. I think we covered it. I don't think we need to re go over that.
I think I'm being as honest with myself as possible. I think I have an understanding as to why I wasn't into the bit, if it was even a bit.
I think so too.
I spent so many.
I think so too. Would you be so pissed if I got on Joe Rogan and he didn't ask you?
I'd be thrilled.
In 90,
if you did that, I think that'd be.
You wouldn't be a little bit like. You wouldn't a little bit. You would.
I'd be pretty thrilled if you pulled that off.
After this conversation,
I think so. If you said, "Dude, I did it," I would. It's more that I don't know. Like I think that people who think like that generally don't execute. They just think in terms of these big lofty goals. But if you actually did it. I'd be like, respect. That's pretty amazing. Good for you. Just put in a good word. I'm not like that. I'm not a jealous type. I don't think. I don't get that way.
It wouldn't make you question. It wouldn't make you question some of your attitude of like maybe you don't have to work so hard.
You think you'd have to? I think you'd have to work hard to do it. So that's the point. The 90 days thing would take a serious, calculated, insane. I don't think it would work, but if it did, I'm happy to be proven.
It would be a great.
I'm happy to be proven wrong for someone's success.
It would be a great YouTube video. Have you ever seen the Nathan Fielder Kimmel interview video?
No.
It's amazing. He goes on Jimmy Kimmel and tells this fantastic story about traveling to the airport and switching luggage with someone, and the person's luggage had a suit that was too big, and in the pocket there was cocaine, and he got pulled over. It was like the perfect late night story. It was, and the clip went viral, and it was a huge success. And then the next episode of his TV show was, I'm about to go on Jimmy Kimmel. How do I tell the perfect late night story? And he writes out the story.
But this was before he went on.
Before he goes on the show. Designs the entire thing to actually happen so that when he goes on the show, he could tell the story.
How do you know he didn't film that episode after the interview and then design an episode about it?
Because in the episode, he's filming himself going on to Jimmy Kimmel. But I suppose he could have, but the conceit of it was, I can't tell a story that's not true. It also might have been the opposite of I told the story and now I have to make it happen. That could have also been
maybe
it, but
he did it. It went viral. He's like, wouldn't it be great if I fooled everybody into thinking I had this all planned and I made a follow-up episode, gone back to the Jimmy Kimmel studio to make it look like I'm going in?
He could have. That's not really his thing. But either way, if we did a YouTube video of how to get on Rogan in 9 days and then got on, that'd be a pretty awesome YouTube video.
Absolutely
That's all.
would. You know, maybe what I was doing, all the things you're claiming, throwing at me is like subconscious because we were only talking in real time. But I still think
I didn't pick up on it at all during the conversation. Yeah. But rewatching it, I'm like, wow, Ami's like really uncomfortable with me.
I think what bothered me is maybe there's a part of me or part of you that I still believe buys into these like misguided or false narratives about show business and Hollywood.
Exactly
and I'm
it.
like, and I wasn't intentionally saying,
That's exactly
I wasn't saying,
it.
I'm not going to go there with you, Michael. I need to preach. I was just like, maybe there's a part of me that I still, no matter how many times I've tried to tell you, it doesn't work in these like secret shadowy ways where somebody snaps a finger. I feel like you still believe that a little bit.
But
do you?
What's wrong with? Do I still believe it a little bit?
In your exposure to Neil, or me, or anything else that we've talked.
No, I don't know. I don't believe that that's how how people are successful. But I'm still very fascinated and curious and drawn to stories of someone like Lil Peep or like Juice WRLD, like people whose lives do change overnight. Like right. And the counter argument is it's not overnight because it wasn't like the first song they ever wrote. But like there are people who like, I guess I'm very fascinated by the getting like taken care of almost of it of like you show what you are and then an industry brings you in. Like if you watch this documentary about Juice WRLD, like
can you remind me and the people watching
within
who
a
Juice
matter of
WRLD
weeks,
is and his story?
Juice WRLD was like one of these like SoundCloud rappers who like personally I don't understand why what people are drawn to with it, but he was like a rapper from like, you know, living sort of like a nothing life. He put up like a few of his tracks that like him and his friend produced onto SoundCloud, and like 6 months later he's at like Glastonbury living in a mansion with a record deal and like people around. He's getting flown in private jets everywhere. Like it literally happened that quickly for someone like him or someone like Lil Peep, like within a year or two. But it's not even so much the success. It's the going from I'm a guy in my house to I'm on a private jet going to Glastonbury. Like the quickness of like when it does turning so quickly. Dane Cook talked about it on did you see it on Logan Paul's podcast?
About his MySpace thing and the thing that exploded him or something? I saw a clip of some kind.
No, well, there was a portion of it where he went from, he put out a special, right? No one would cover it. He reached out to like New England Journal of whatever special, like no one would talk about it. He puts it up on MySpace, his comedy special. 2 weeks later, the same people who wouldn't write it are begging him to be interviewed, and then like a few months later, he's like in a movie with like Jessica Simpson, and he's like and his attitude it was interesting. Like so they asked him, they're like, what was that like to go from like obscure to like you're dating these starlets and celebrities, you're like in the movie, and he was like, and his attitude, which speaks to what you're talking about, was he's like, I fucking deserve to be here, so I'm gonna enjoy it. I worked really hard and I put myself out there and like I belong here. That's because he had worked all of a sudden. But I am really like fascinated by that 2 week period.
You're allowed to be. That's the thing. I respect that, and it's totally understandable to be drawn to that story, and it's luring and captivating and fascinating. And that is representative of what most people think about the entertainment business and show business and how people get made. It's the Beatles on Ed Sullivan. Am I saying it right? The Beatles on Sullivan, right? Their performance of I Want to Hold Your Hand.
Edward Sullivan.
Their performance on Ed Sullivan, I think it was Ed Sullivan, you know, it's that's the moment. That's the VH1 behind the music. It wasn't until. And what I'm averse to is the fact that because I've been in the game now enough of a chunk of time to have some little bit of some authority or credibility on experience of seeing it a little bit on the inside, you know, a little bit. I'm not gonna I was adjacent to some certain. I've just put in some sweat into the game over the last decade and change, particularly on the music side, you know. And when you're in it, you see the difference between people who still perceive this romanticized view and therefore say they're keeping me out, I'm waiting my turn, I'm waiting to be anointed, and they're keeping me out, versus the people who keep their head down and work. And then then those people pop off and explode along the way because they're, instead of looking for some grand plan and some magical miracle, they're working, they're writing music, they're producing, they're meeting people, they're creating.
Right.
They are the ones in the grind. I want to be associated with that and in that world, which is the world I decided to participate in, which is, we have to just put hours upon hours upon hours upon hours of blood, sweat into this work and get good and love the process along the way. What David talked about on our episode of that moment when it actually happened was nice. It was fleeting, but everything else until that point was.
Is that?
You know?
I have two questions for you. Number one, is it true though that if it never paid off for you, and you never popped off, and you stayed at open mic opening for Elon Gold's level for the rest of your life, but you got really good at it, and for whatever happened, like whatever it is, not machinations, but it just whatever it is, people don't find you, you just do that, but you got really good at it. Would that still be enough for you?
Both things have to happen, obviously. Like you have to. No, I'm telling.
Right. But that's not. But not like a real craftsman artist. I think would say, I don't. If I'm just painting in my cabin and no one appreciates my art, that would suck. But it's enough for me to just.
Different. I feel different.
Like I'm just trying to get good at this thing.
I think. I'm
just saying for you also, it's a little bit.
I think I would feel worse if I was allowed two choices, right? Getting really good at something I really enjoyed doing, even if it didn't see massive financial success or professional success, but I loved every second of it, versus immense financial success and professional success, hating every ounce of the process. If those are the choices, I don't necessarily think you'd want all the success with the misery of a miserable existence along the way. I mean, it's easy to say that,
but that's not the choice.
No,
but that's not. It's a mix of a lot of knowing labor and parts that you love, and it may pay off, it may not pay off. It doesn't pay off for everybody.
But the goal is not the necessarily like the binary of either rich and famous rock star or pauper. It's somewhere in between, because your goal is to try to make a living at it so you can keep doing it, not keep doing it so you can make a living. It's like I've said this phrase a lot. It's like, you're not pursuing rich and famous. You're not doing the music or the art to be rich and famous. You're trying to be rich and famous so you can do the art, you know? Like, you want a career that can sustain you enough to be able to do what you love to do. That's the ultimate high, is like, I do what I love and I can live off of it. That's the greatest thing ever. But you're right. So you make a good point. If none of, like you said, like David said, like, it just happened. It was no big deal. It's like, but if that stuff never happened, you'd be gutted. You'd be like, what am I doing? Whatever. You'd have to. So those things have to happen.
So that brings me to
happen. The marks of success.
That brings me to my second question of someone who's, so you're in the mindset, you're surrounded by the people who aren't doing it for the overnight transformation, for people who are putting their head down and doing the work. Even someone like that gets frustrated. So let's say I complain with you, maybe on the podcast, maybe in person. When do you complain? When do you express your frustration? Because the frustration is there. It's not non-existent. So how do you express it? How do you express the disappointment and the frustration? If it's not on the podcast or to me, then who do you do it with, or do you do it at all?
Good question. First of all, you weren't complaining last week. You were just being kibitzey, and I was not in the mood.
No, but I mean, that's my manifestation of God. I wish it would just happen for me already. Like, you know, that is how I do it. Like, I'll ask a silly question like that, and you're right to pick up on that. That's why I think it's an interesting conversation to have, because you're not wrong.
I didn't know.
That.
I thought,
but that's my way of doing it. So how do you do it?
I don't know. You develop a very good reflex. I mean, you've seen the things that have happened for me that are like positive over the course of things. You've seen that, and like I've shared that with you, but you just haven't seen the
And it's
but
great when
you haven't seen the mountain
of
rejections. Like, I don't share those with you. And there's mountains of them.
Yeah, so where
they
are those?
Just are. No, what happens is with time, like, I think you get you just like you don't let the successful things get to your head, you don't let the other things get to your head either. You just try to get better and.
So you're not frustrated?
Disappointed, but like, shit. Next.
I mean, I hear you, but really, like, there's no.
It hurts a lot more when.
There's no day where you just can't get it together because you're so disappointed or whatever.
I think that like the more it's like gets easier and easier when you've had a few successes that balance out the things, so you know it's just part of the process. The very first commercials I was trying to get my music into, every loss was I don't think I can do this. I must be the one who I must be the failure. That was like let's say like the first year in the game. I didn't even know if I was validated by this. Like, I was attempting to like write music to get into ads, write music for commercials, and I had no idea if I was capable of doing it. You know? So every single time I submitted a demo for a commercial and it got shot down, it in the beginning, it's sort of like those first girls who reject you. You know, it's heartbreaking and it's the worst feeling in the world. Not only that, it's existentially frustrating. You're like, I would go to Razi. I'm like, I really don't think maybe they're like, I looked at it the way you look at the way you've presented it. Like, there are the people who make it and the people who don't. I'm that person who doesn't. Every single piece of music I'm submitting is losing.
So your wife. So one of the people.
Yeah, I would complain to her.
But so you would complain. You would talk about it.
Yeah, I think so. But I would talk about it with her. But even she would attest to saying like I don't really complain that much. Like, I would say, okay, I'll do that. And like, I would get over it. My recovery time got faster and faster and faster. Especially as my music was getting better.
So what
happens? And you always need validation around you. Like, I would, like my superiors who I was working for at the time, like in music production companies, would say, like at first, this needs some work. But then they're like, then like you start to also look for your signs of progress. So let's say the music didn't go on TV yet. And I'm like, I still haven't had any music on TV, but I'm trying to get it there. But the guys ahead of me are saying, dude, this sounds really good. Like, first they were like, I mean, this needs a little work here, needs a little work here. So it's like the early first pieces of music I was producing. You got to make the drums sound a little punchier. This really isn't working, man. Sorry. It's just like, so those are your first things. You're like, all right, I suck. I'm going to try to get better. And then it's like, hey, dude, nice track. That really worked. So I'm thinking, oh God, I'm going to do it. It's going to go on TV. Yes, I did it. These guys who've all had music on TV just said it was good. That's my first validation. And it didn't. So maybe at the time I didn't say I've already succeeded in some way by getting recognition from my peers. But then so many times I had false positives where I thought it was going all the way. Hey, the agent loves it, the producer loves it, all that kind of stuff, and it still doesn't go final. Then they end up picking something else. So that's gutting, but at least now I'm passing a few little gates here where it's like the approval or like getting the validation. Just validation is what you're talking about ultimately, not professional and rich and famous success, validation, right? Validation is super important to the process. And that validation comes in the form of somebody above you, somebody who, like your boss, somebody who works for you, somebody in the game who you respect, liking what you're doing, and then ultimately the fans like loving what you're doing, right? That's like the big macro goal of having enough fans validate what you're doing. But my point is, there was a point where I was like this close to saying, I just can't do this anymore. And that day, it was maybe a year into the game or something like that. The day I was like talking to my dad, I would complain to him. You ask who else I complain to? It's like my dad. Yeah, I'll go to him.
Okay.
For some generic feel-good pick-me-ups.
Okay.
And he said to me, like,
there we go.
Listen, he was encouraging, and it was like, I think I have to change gears here. Like, I've been writing music for almost a year and trying to get it in. It's just like, it's not working so well. I don't think I'm that guy. I mean, I was ready to like trying to change course, and I get a call that day. That day, I was like kind of ready to say, I don't think so. And I get a call from a music producer who I had been submitting music to, a company, and they said, hey, Ami, yeah. So that track you did for San Diego Tourism, the ad campaign, I was like, yeah. And he goes, they like it. They really like it. It's a 30-second piece of music. Could you come in and do a full length of the song on Monday? And I said, sure. But I wasn't all like, because at that point I had so many a whole mountain of disappointing. I'm like, whatever, okay, sure. I do the full length. And everyone's like, there's this like vibe in the office. Man, this is really, wow, okay. And then, long story short, but it's a very long story up until that one. That one ended up being one of the biggest ones they ever got, wins-wise, like money-wise, brought in a lot of money for the company and for me. And all of a sudden, I got like a chunk that made me realize, wow, all this time I was a real composer. I just didn't perceive myself as one yet until I won that one. The ultimate stamp of validation. And it retroactively made all the efforts I'd done up until that point valid and legitimate. I've been talking for a while, sorry.
Do you know what I thought of when you said that? Do you remember when in Big Daddy when Adam Sandler does Scuba Steve? And he shows up to the door, and I thought your dad was going to call you up and go, "Hey, I'm a big-time producer, and I think you're swell." And I want to buy your
just
music.
Just to make me feel good.
After you got off the phone.
Yeah, like
I
walk out of his. I walk out of his.
I gotta go, and then you get a call.
Hey, I walk out of his lounge chair, and all of a sudden my dad goes, I'm gonna help my boy. Your mind wandered for the whole second half of that conversation into a very funny place.
It did. No, but I totally hear you. So nowadays when you think you're going to get a project, I guess maybe part of the difference is you don't need anything to really land now. You need most things to do well, but like you're not. You don't. If one thing doesn't work, like all right, I got like you said, I have these other balls in the air that are actually working.
It's even less.
Let's say
it's less than. Go ahead.
I mean, let's say like
it's less that
through,
it was like Seinfeld has been famously quoted saying, "I know I'm funny, and I don't need you to tell me I'm funny." Okay, I know I'm funny.
Yeah, but you
anyway,
still
you were
need
finish
things
the point
to happen.
I don't need
like I'm saying past the validation. So walk me through. You're with the band.
Yeah.
You're with the band. Not so much your comedy, but with the band,
Yeah.
I'm interested in. You there's a show coming up. You put something together. It's supposed to happen. You kind of need it because you need the next project. You need to be generating revenue for the year, and you get the call like, hey guys, they loved it, but they're actually going with someone else. What is the next 6 hour? What does the next 6 hours look like? Like what's the immediate? What's the reaction like? The next or day to 2 days?
Yeah. Fuck. Ugh, I thought that one was going. All right. That's it. I'm totally honest with you.
Yeah, that's all it is.
We don't.
And you come to work the next day.
The next hour. And also, it's not like we do this, but subconsciously it's like we impressed all the producers. We turned around a track that they needed for submission in a day. In 24 hours, we sent them a piece. That piece might eventually become the next theme song for a different show. We did work that was successful as a creation. We birthed something. Mm-hmm. We've made impressions on people who go working from DreamWorks to Netflix to Apple to all over the stratosphere of the business. That's not the right word. To all over the whole sphere of influence in that world. Industry. It's like we won something, even if it wasn't the prize. You know what I mean? Hey guys, love what you did. It was great working with you. Thanks for turning around something quickly. Unfortunately, the producers went in a different direction. All right, but we put in our best efforts. We didn't get the prize, but we competed. I guess that's what I'm saying. We competed. Like we're in the game. It's sort of like we didn't win the gold at the Olympics, but we were in the Olympics. Well, I'm being you know what I mean? Not to put us on some pedestal, but one can make the argument that any athlete in any of the Olympic Games, whether they win any medals or not, is at some level successful. That they pass that round. They're in the Olympics. We're in the games, and we're playing. We don't win the medals every time, but we compete, and that's all you can ask for. And it's not like it's not disappointing, but what are you gonna do? You have to then move on and find the next thing. It's like you're hunting and your arrow missed, but you shot your arrow. It's like you're still hungry, so let's go find some food.
Right. So you're not texting another band like, hey man, you guys want to meet up?
That happens often too. Well, no, of course not. I mean, this band is the one getting the emails for the opportunities to do things. So clearly, it's at a certain point, it is a matter of what's up it's up to God. It's in the stars if it's going to happen or not. There's so many arbitrary reasons. A producer ended up having a cousin who had an acoustic guitar song that he liked more because he actually really, or they gave us all this direction and it was all misleading and it wasn't exactly what they wanted. And then some executive producer ended up saying, you know what? I really like David Guetta. And then all of a sudden they're like, can we do that? And everyone who's deferential goes, David Guetta. Okay, never mind all this other unnecessary work. And sometimes you get paid for your demos along the way, so you made something. Nothing crazy, but you get paid for your labor, a demo fee. But that's just part of the game. It's sort of like in any business, your house, you were trying to sell an apartment or whatever, and that didn't work. You don't pedestal that because it's not art, so it's not as personal to you, a loss like that. But what do? So you try to sell it to somebody else. So when you're in the business side of things, you try to sell it to somebody else and try to make it work with a different relationship or a different opportunity. But you've won something each time you've put an effort and made something of quality. I guess that's a good way to look at it. And then and you do say, shit, all right, next. And never assume anything until it's final, and you're paid and it's over. The project is wrapped. Anything can happen along the way. So never make a presumption. No news is generally bad news if you haven't gotten back, but you just never know. The only thing you do is play the game and play well. It's like, make sense? This was good, Michael. Yeah. I liked it.
And then once in a while, Scuba Steve calls you up and tells you you're going to be okay.
I'm Scuba Steve.
This is
Adam
Netflix.
He has just maintained such a wholesome brand his entire career. Good for him. I don't know how he's done it. Yeah, sustained this. He seems like the most lovable, likable guy in Hollywood, without being cheesy or cringy. Just made these. He has respect to so many people, such a range. I just saw this weird clip of like Brad Pitt interviewing Adam Sandler on TikTok or something. Yeah.
Really?
And Brad Pitt.
Oh, you never see Brad Pitt anywhere.
He was talking to him in some clip, and he was like, "I respect all the things you've done," giving him praise. Thank you so much. And Brad, you've been crushing it all these years, and I just really think that's really great. But and he said, when you said I was good in Uncut Gems, that made me feel really good, man, because you've been crushing it for so long. That's what Adam Sandler said. It was sweet. It was like a nice, sweet moment. But.
He's doing another movie with the Safdies, I think. The Uncut Gems.
Have you seen
Gems guys.
That Hustle movie? Whatever it's called, the basketball movie. Was it good?
Yeah. It's really interesting. I think we're gonna look back on movies. It was good, but I think we're gonna look back on movies like this that are like really excited to watch it. So psyched when you see that it comes up on Netflix. Like, really enjoy watching it. Great hour and a half. Solid movie. I will never, ever watch it again, or ever tell anyone to watch it again, or ever think
What's it missing?
Again. Like, it's these like commodities that these streamers are putting up. I think those days are over, actually. But like, so many press release movies that are okay.
Flavor of the
just
month
like
for a second.
poof, like gone and hardly exist. Flavor of the hour and a half, and then like I'll never be to someone like, oh, you weren't looking for something to watch? How about Hustle on Netflix? That's a good movie. It's like a TV episode that aired and is gone. Like, never be like, you should go back to ER season 5 episode 13.
I wonder if that's a product. if that's a product of the fact that everything is so instantaneously available to us at all times that we feel no sense of urgency to go check anything out. In other words, like, remember when a movie would just appear on FX? Independence Day is on. I'm going to watch it from wherever, because when else am I going to get an opportunity to watch Independence Day? It's just here right now, so I'm going to savor this Sunday afternoon and finish Mrs. Doubtfire or Independence Day, because it's right here, and I haven't seen it in years. But now you can get anything whenever you want, so nothing is sacred.
Yeah, definitely part of it. I think it's part of that, and also the business model was basically get people like that to put out movies so we can get subscribers, because that's how subscribers grow. But they don't have to be good. They just have to kind of exist. Like, they can't be awful, but they don't have to be good.
Speaking of,
they can just be there, and that's what they are.
Awful,
They're just there.
We can wrap soon because we're going over an hour here. But I was so angry on the plane. I haven't sat through like a long movie in a long time, and I watched almost 3 hours of the entire film. That was the new Batman movie with what's his name? What's the guy's name?
Yeah, with James Patterson, Jesse Pattinson.
This movie was so horrible. People said they liked it. Some people, but I did. It was such a dreadfully boring, uneventful, pacingly, like the pace was. I said a snail's pace. It was from the dialogue to the music.
Yeah, you said that.
And the
fighting,
fighting,
it was a snail's
like
pace.
the way they talked. in the movie was so slow. And like, you know how like story drives a movie, obviously? So you felt I could have shut it off at any point and felt nothing. But I figured I'm just going to do this. And it was really painful.
Really?
And then when I knew it was, and when it ended, I was just like, man, does somebody watch this back as a cut and say, okay, we need to like figure this? I'm always amazed when a movie makes it through all the way at this state, this bad.
Well, did you hear what happened to
I know that they
Batgirl?
shelved.
Are you aware of any
They
of
said
that?
this is too bad to put out. I'm aware of it from the article about it, the coverage. They shelved them.
Pretty much, yeah. That's pretty much what's happening. It wasn't so much as too bad to put out. It was more like we'll make more money as a tax write-off than we will putting it out, and also we have to stop doing this. Like we have to stop putting out mediocre movies that don't connect and hardly make sense.
What you just said about things. It doesn't have to be that good, but maybe there is some quality control.
Oh no! But I also said those days are over. In the last couple months, when Netflix reported they lost subscribers, everyone was like, "Well, it doesn't work," and they stopped. Yeah, like decent stuff with big names. It's like kind of
decent stuff with big names or bad stuff.
So I mean, that's what the Batman was.
Well, so the Batgirl thing is and it goes to my point about saying never celebrate until it's over, right? Like I'm sure this girl who played Batgirl was like, I got cast as Batgirl.
Oh my God.
This could be the next big DC movie, next big franchise, a superhero movie, whatever it is, and it makes it all the way to finished and ready to go, and they say, "Now it sucks."
Yeah.
So never celebrate too early.
The director was at her wedding. The director was at her wedding when she found out.
The director of the movie?
Her own wedding. Like, can you imagine? Everyone was probably like, we're going to the wedding of the person that just made Batgirl. She's about to be huge. It's like this, like, it was like, on the verge of that 2-week thing of like, she's about to like make her entrance into like, and then you find out the day of your wedding, like, you're still getting married, but all that's not happening.
From the article it read, it said the movie was so unwatchable. And it was a movie or a series?
Yeah.
It was a movie, and they said it was so unwatchable and so bad they could not, in good conscience. Every trace of this has to be erased. It was terrible.
I think that's a little bit of a spin
financing
on like we've put out movies like this before, but now we're taking the tax write-off.
Well, all the DC movies are pretty much shit, except for the Christian Bale Batman.
Yeah. I was hearing like it had
How much
problems,
do you
but it wasn't like irredeemable.
How much do you want to see it?
It wasn't irredeemable. Yeah. I know it would be the biggest movie now, right? You know what? They should put it out as an NFT for $80 million.
Did you hear what Andrew Schultz did with his special? How he took it off. He's like, "You have to watch now," and he's like, "You know what? I'll put it back." He's like, "I'm a greedy."
Yeah, that was. Yeah. Well, his whole thing was to create urgency.
He's like, "I'm greedy."
Create urgency by putting it out for 2 weeks.
No, but I do want to.
I want to buy it. Have you bought it?
You're more likely to buy it.
I want to buy it too.
You do that. I don't know.
Which is strange. Isn't it strange?
Commit and do that. It's just something you do more than I do.
Yeah, that's true. And I want to buy Louis C.K.'s movie that came out also. It's on his website now. $15.
Anyway.
That's really what I think. I'm like, I can't wait to see it on $15. I don't know.
Well, Michael, this was a good self-examining episode in some ways. You know?
I like this. I didn't know what to expect. I'm glad I brought that up.
And Riverside is working. We can do it if we're ever traveling or something like that. You know?
Yeah, and if you don't want to put this out,
it was a little cringe for me. I think it was good to examine our own minds for an episode. Why not?
Yeah.
I think we're ready to go. I think I stopped the recording, and that's Buckle Up episode 39. We're almost at 40 episodes, Michael. So that's cool.
I'm feeling the dip, by the way. We got to talk about that next time.
You feeling
I think
the dip?
This might be the dip.
We're back in another dip?
Yeah.
I mean, listen. I'm enjoying making it. So that's a win.
Yeah.
What are you impatient about? What do you want? You want more followers? You're like a mob boss with your sunglasses. No more sunglasses for you. You get too powerful. There.
It's true. It's true. Like, I can say things in these I would never say. I would never say.
You're in a dip, and I'll put you in a ditch if you open your mouth. Yeah, there he is. But anyway, yes, I understand the dip, but I think it's good. Right. I think we're on the right track. I really do. The fact that we've spoken about a podcast for years. It exists and it's plentiful, and everybody I run into, at least once a week, I get comments about it. So it's making its impact on the little microcosm world we're in. People text me things. Oh, you should talk about this. Like it's it's
Definitely.
becoming
self-sustaining.
That's Buckle Up,
Definitely.
episode 39. Michael is a dangerous man in sunglasses.
Buckle up, baby.
We'll see you next time in person.